My name is Mike Pinkel, and right now we're going to talk about my favorite subject, how to avoid the sales doom loop. So how does the sales doom loop happen? Well, it starts with a sense of promise. The founders are able to sell the product, and in fact, they can do it without even having the right sales tools because they deeply understand their customers. So what do? They hire sales reps, and they focus on experienced sales reps who they feel can hit the ground running. But what happens? Those sales reps end up failing because they don't have the founder's perspective and they don't deeply understand the customer's needs. What's more, they don't have the right sales tools to prove value to customers. So what happens? The company ends up firing a bunch of its sales reps and the cycle starts again. So why is this happening? Well, the basic reason is that companies are using conversations that might work well in another context, but that don't work in sales. So the first of these is a vision pitch. And this is basically what you use when you're pitching your company to investors. Your essential message is, hey, we're going to change the world. Well, you show that to a customer and the customer's reaction is, okay, great, but what does that have to do with me? Another type of conversation is a how-to demo. And this, again, you definitely need this when you're raising money. You've got to show your investors that your product actually works. But if you showed this to a prospective customer, they're like, okay, cool, like that's cool technology, but why should I care? So how do you get out of this doom loop? Well, the P.S.I. approach has three basic steps. The first is to define your value themes. The second is to build sales conversations. And the third is to build a sales team that can execute. So let's talk about themes, right? These are going to prove value and they're going to create persuasive momentum. There's basically three types of themes. There's the problems you solve, right? These show a need for action and shape the search for a solution. There's the solutions you offer, right? These show how the product helps and they tell folks how it's different. And then there's the impacts you deliver, right? These define the kinds of benefits you offer and they estimate the magnitude of each of these kinds of impact. Right? Together, these three things lead to each other. Problems lead to solutions, which lead to impacts, and together they lead to a purchase. You should define 3 problems, 3 solutions, and 3 impacts, just to kind of give a full sense of all the different aspects of your product. Now, together, these themes are going to structure almost all of your sales conversations, and they're going to make them much more persuasive than what companies typically do. So think about a typical sales deck, right? It's basically a jumble of slides. One slide, another slide after that. Some of the slides on their own might be pretty good, but they don't really add up to a persuasive presentation. So a P.S.I. sales deck is different. You're going to start off with summary slides that outline the problems, solutions, and impacts that you deliver. Then you're essentially going to unpack each of those types of themes. You're going to define the problem, which sets up the solution, which sets up the impacts, which sets up great next steps that drive that sales process forward. Think about demos, right? Your typical demo is basically a set of clicks on a bunch of buttons. One click, another click after that. It's incredibly confusing for the folks who are watching it. A P.S.I. software demo is different. You're going to start off with those summary slides that outline the problems, solutions, and impacts, and then you're going to unpack each of the parts of your solution. You're going to start with one element of your solution, and then another, and then finally the third, and then you're going to talk about next steps. And in fact, themes structure each of those component parts of the demo as well. So let's look at what happens inside one of those elements of the solution. So you'll start off with an orientation that lets the viewer kind of know what they're about to see. You'll mention a problem, right? Because your solution doesn't matter if it's not solving a problem. You'll demo the solution, but you'll present it not just as a bunch of features, but as a way that you're resolving the problem that you just mentioned. And then you'll draw out the impacts as well. Now, the other key aspect of P.S.I. is helping you build a great sales team. And there's 2 aspects to that. The first is hiring hidden gem sales reps. So remember that one of the challenges that companies kind of face is that they try to hire really experienced sales reps. Well, that sounds great, but most really experienced sales reps don't want to work at early stage companies. So it's really hard to find good ones. So we will help you solve that problem by focusing on sales reps that have tons of talent and enough experience. So how do we uncover that talent? Well, we'll do that with rapid fire sales scenarios, deal strategy, hypothetical questions, and then a great mock sales pitch. Then we've got to get these folks ready to sell, and we'll do that with action-focused onboarding. Now, the key of this is that we're going to focus on practice, not just watching other folks sell or studying materials. So we'll define the major challenges in your sales process. We'll create a hypothetical prospect that essentially presents those sales challenges, and then we'll build simulated sales calls that give your new sales reps a chance to solve all of your sales challenges in a practice scenario. So to learn more about P.S.I. selling, check out our website. There you'll find resources on effective discovery, strategic negotiation, hidden gem hiring, structured demos, persuasive sales writing, and action-focused onboarding. And most importantly, as always, happy selling.